Hey, Kimberly. Michelle, good to see you. It's been too long. Seems like all the fun people are showing up today. I love it. Hello, Lisa. How are you? Kaylee's having a party. Party of one over there in Zoom. Shiraj, how are you?
Great, thank you for asking.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Lisa, don't thank me yet. We'll see. We'll see how this goes. Look at this image here. You might have second thoughts. It is top of the hour, so I'm going to dive in. I'm going to keep this to brief, to the point. We'll probably take about 20 minutes here to do a demo and have a conversation about some theories related to learning science that might help us enhance our presentation, our lecturing skills a little bit. We all love lectures, right? So show of hands, maybe, how many of you have sat in a lecture that resembles what you see here on screen? Kimberly, it can't be your own lecture. That doesn't count, right? That's awesome.
Never mind then.
I'm kidding.
Just kidding.
This is my lecture. Actually, I'm picking on Kimberly because she's an all-star and shows up for a lot of our courses, like some of the other folks here. And sometimes I would admit maybe my lectures feel like this, but yeah, we all showed our hands here. We've all been there and witnessed this, right? So what I'm planning to do here today is to talk about some principles. In fact, 4 steps that will help you unbore your presentations, right, for the purposes of learning. My name is Quincy. I'm representing the Teaching and Learning Center along with my 3 colleagues here. We have Brittany, Julie, as well as Brenda. We'll keep it casual. Feel free to come off mute at any point if you have a question or comment that you relate to. Also, feel free to use that chat as well, please. And we'll stay on. This will be about 20 minutes. We'll hang on as long as we have questions and comments. We'll stay on as long as you like to talk about things. At the same time, go ahead and grab one of your lectures, your favorite one or your least favorite one. And as you go through this and as we talk about things, maybe you try some of the things that we show you here today, okay? But not mandatory. Feel free to kick back and enjoy the ride here if you like. But what are we going to talk about today? So you all are gracious to take time out of your day to meet with us today and talk about something that I think we all are familiar with and is very important to us. Today, I'm going to discuss some steps for how to build less boring lectures. What do I mean by that? We'll explain that. And then I want to actually demonstrate a few things that I think can help you, maybe some tips and tricks that you're familiar with, maybe some you've never seen before. And then we'll share a few popular resources that might help you be quick and efficient with your presentation building. All right, here we go. So to jump right in, I believe that there's 4 steps. Dr. Skinner, can you tell me what you think those 4 steps are from this slide? Can you name one from this slide?
Create a theme.
Create a theme, okay.
But I can't tell if you're saying that creating a theme is good or bad.
Interesting. Okay, fantastic. Joe, how about now?
Oh, there we go.
Can you tell me maybe 1 or 2, 3 steps that hasn't already been explained as for how to build less boring lectures? I think you're talking. Are you off mute? Looks like you're off mute. We don't have any audio. So while you check that, is there anybody else can tell me the 4 steps that we're going to talk about today? Shiraj.
Thanks. Oh, and Quincy, just, you know, my name's pronounced Saroj. No,
Saroj. My
yeah.
apologies. Thank you for
That's
correcting
okay.
me.
So yeah, obviously the 4 steps here are create a theme, capture attention, direct attention, and tell a story. And the nice thing is that they're organized or sequenced both visually and numerically. So it's a little bit clearer from this slide compared to the other one, what we're looking at, what's the order we're looking at, and, you know, having it all in one place.
Fantastic. Couldn't have said it better. Thank you for sharing that and being brave, coming off mute. Appreciate it. Absolutely. So let's dive into each of these steps and what do I mean by these 4 steps so you have a better handle on them. So create a theme was step 1. I think this is probably one of the more underappreciated step. So often we're going fast. We're you know, if we do have time, we're thinking in terms of, oh, I've got to get X number of presentations together. Let's go, 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 go. And in some cases we're like, I inherited something, or I've got to do this by next week. Let me throw some things together. What I'd like to show you hands-on here in a moment is a way to do this where maybe we'll save you some time, but yet come out and look at particular visually appealing way that is organized, as Shiroj has eloquently described. But before we dive into that, which of these 2 examples do you think is comprehensive, left or right? Michelle, do you have a? Oh, I heard a voice.
I'd say right.
Right. Okay. You felt like that's more comprehensive, more theme based, right? Why is not the left one? What's wrong with the left one?
Well, I think it has too many pictures. It's kind of like that you have the whole body one and then teeth and skin, and I'm already confused looking at it.
Right. There isn't a theme, perhaps, right? Yeah, Saroj talks about distracting. Images aren't relevant, right? It's not intuitive anyway, right? Left is not focused. Fantastic. Absolutely. So I agree with that. And so what I would like to do is show you a quick way to create themes for your slides that allows you, hopefully, with some practice, that you'll get faster at doing this. So is anybody here, show of hands, familiar with slide masters, using the slide master or theme builder? No one? Okay. Well, I'm going to show you how to do this maybe in both ways first. So really quick, hopefully you can still see my screen. I've just switched over to PowerPoint. This is a blank PowerPoint slide. So we'll start here. So no color, just the title slide, a typical title slide. So one of my favorite things to do when building a PowerPoint presentation is I like to use what's called a slide master to create the framework for my slides. Okay, what do I mean by that? So if you're following along at home, click on view. No matter if you're on PC or Mac, it might be in a different place depending on the version of PowerPoint you're using. But go ahead and click on view, and you should see some options that similar reflect these. Look for master, and then slide master for me. Okay. Everyone find it okay that's looking for it? Once you do that, it's gonna change the window for you. And how you know is the new tab should appear and it should tell you that you're on the slide master. So this is going to be the built-in theme, the template that all things are built for your slides, for your PowerPoint. So what you see here on the left-hand pane, depending on your view, is going to be the main view. This is a typical slide with a title and one content layout. You can see, I'm going to click on it. Anything, this is going to be your default, right? For most things. White background, black text, pretty basic font, nothing fancy here. And then from there, you're going to have a subset style that's going to be based on that's related. So this would be considered a title, and it's often titled that. You could see as I roll over, it says title slide. And then I have one content, which means title, and one content area. If you go down here, I've got 2 content areas, so on and so forth. So this is the slide master. So any change that you make here is going to reflect on your on your slides, your main slides. So how could this be useful for us? So for instance, I want to create a nice cohesive theme. I'm going to show you how to do that in like 4 clicks. Let's see if that happens, right? So the first thing I want to do, I want to add some color, right? White background, black text, kind of boring. I want to create a theme. And so I'm just going to right click on the background, and I'm going to go to format background. And then from here, I should have a new option here to choose the color. And I'm just going to add a little bit of a soft background that will allow the content that I have proposed, that I present on there, to have a little pop. So feel free to choose whatever your favorite color is. I would choose something subtle, but that is maybe related to what you're trying to do. So I chose this gray, a very subtle theme, okay? And then next, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change up the color a little bit, and a complementary color to gray. I'm looking for contrast. I want a color that's gonna stand out against this background. I'm gonna go back to the home tab, and I'm gonna change this to blue, and I'm gonna pick the ATSU blue. All right, so now I didn't do that quite yet. I'm gonna pick a color, here we go. So now that's blue. You barely see it. I'm gonna do the same thing for this area, the one content area. I'm gonna change that to blue as well, boom. All right, so that is that. So 3 things that I just did: change the background, change the font color of the title, as well as the body, okay? So now you're already starting to pick up, there's a little bit of a theme here. It's a little bit more than the bland black and white, right? And now you'll notice in the slide master, guess what happened? The background's changed with you, the font color changed with you as well, okay? You're already cooking with Crisco here. So what I like to do, and I think about this, usually 4 slides is all I need. I need a title slide, right? I need a one content area slide, right? Where I put a text on there. And then I probably want a 2 content in case I have pictures. And then I might have one for video, or just something that I need that doesn't fit nicely in those 2 areas. So if that's the case, you're gonna have these default options. I'm gonna go ahead and delete all of those because I don't need them, and I don't want them getting in my way. So I'm gonna delete anything that I think I won't need. And so now I'm left with 4 nice slides that I think I can build my whole PowerPoint from. What that does for me is it's gonna create a theme, it's gonna create conformity, it's gonna be easy to predict for the students as they're looking at your slides, right? They're gonna be able to come here and they're gonna know everything's gonna be in this nice layout. Things aren't gonna be all over the place, all of those things, right? Any questions about this so far before we go back to the slide? All right, no questions. So I'm gonna go back to that slide master tab, and then there should be an option to close master. So now this brings me back to the view. This brings me back to the main view where my slides, where I have to work with, okay? So now what I'm gonna do is, maybe I have an existing PowerPoint, maybe I don't, but now I'm gonna import my content for brevity here. I'm actually gonna import slides from a previous presentation that I've created. All right, so if anybody used reuse slides option in PowerPoint before, where you import slides all together, has anyone done that before? Okay, Saroj is on it. All right, so for those that haven't done this, so anytime you're in your PowerPoint that you're wanting to update, just click on new slide, and you should get the slide template that the masters that we just created will be your option. Normally we pick one of these and then we're off to the races, right? We click it and then we try to fill it, populate it. But in this case, what I want you to do is actually click on reuse slides. You don't have to do this part, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna click reuse slides. It's gonna open a folder for me where I get to choose previous presentation. So my previous lecture is right here, pretty boring. I wanna make it better, but I want it to look like what the theme I just created. So I'm gonna click okay, it's gonna import, and voila, wouldn't you know, there it is, and it matches this new theme that I created. Way better than what it was before. All right, so then all my slides are here, and because I created just those 4 slides, I can do things like come here and I can reapply a layout that I like if I wanted to. If I wanted to change it, I could choose a different layout from the ones that I created in the slide master. All right, any questions about that? All right, so I just showed you in about 4 clicks how to create a theme. I'm gonna show you how to do this in PowerPoint, or excuse me, in Google Slides next. So say, hey, I'm not the most creative person in the world. I like to finger paint, but maybe there's some slides out there that would help me pick out some really cool themes that would be professionally looking, fit my topic, and help me look better in front of the classroom. Well, PowerPoint has the same thing. guess where I'm going to go? So this is a new slide deck from Google, right? I'm going to click view. I'm going to do something similar, but instead of slide or a master, it's called theme builder. I'm going to pick that option. And now this looks very familiar to us, I hope. This is your master slide right here that's going to be dependent upon your theme for your slides. And then you should get some options. Let me see if it's going to give me the options. It went away. Let me try again. Theme builder. All right, so it didn't. It went away. So that's okay. But hopefully if you're in Google Slides, you should get the option here to choose from some of their templates that they offer. You could probably find them new and then from template. Here it is. So ATSU has some templates here that you can borrow from. And then there's all sorts here as well. And then one other thing I was going to show you, I'm going to drop out. Brittany might be on it. She is in the chat. Is SlideGo. If you Google, there it is in the chat. If you Google, Google Slides templates, you go to this website. So the one that I'm showing you now, I'm going to bounce back to the PowerPoint presentation. This one, the master theme here is actually from SlideGo. And they'll even sometimes include free icons that you can use and images and all these things that are fantastic. It just makes your life just that much easier. So within about 6 minutes, we just created a pretty visually appealing presentation that's maybe custom to us, or we can plop a template in there that we like, right? Using the colors that we prefer. And then Sarosh, yes, absolutely. So through the portal, the ATSU portal, there's a request through CNM where you can ask for them to create a theme for you. In fact, that's where these came from, is from that group, the CNM, Communications and Marketing Group. So you could do that. You could say, hey, I really like the first one. Can you make it, KCOM specific, or, your department specific, whatever. You could do that, or they're really talented. They're really good. Some of the best I've worked with at a university, and they're pretty speedy depending on what time of year. End of the fiscal year is usually pretty busy for them because they're doing a lot of annual reports and things like that. But give them a month or so, they'll definitely not disappoint. Great question, great comment. All right, so getting back to it, creating a theme. And any questions about creating a theme? Is anybody going to try it? Awesome, fantastic. All right, so moving right along, I want to talk next about step 2, which is capturing their attention. So now that you've built this template, maybe it's gone, you've practiced a couple of times now, it's pretty easy for you, you know what to expect. The first thing you do now when planning your presentation is to capture your learners' attention. Which of these 2 slides would you say is more attention getting? Left or right?
Right.
Right. Okay. Why is that? What makes that one draw your attention more?
Because it looks like a movie we can watch.
Ah, okay, movie. Okay, fantastic. Well, here's the deal. No surprises, but sometimes our students need our help focusing. They show up to your class, they show up in front of you. This could even apply in the clinical floor here. They need your help and knowing where to put their attention, how to engage. If they don't devote resources, right? If we think about the biology, the physiological response here, if they don't put attention to devote resources to what it is that you're about to say to them, how could they possibly learn this, right? And we know that our students' attention wanes here and there, but if we get their attention right away, the science kind of tells us they're more likely to lock in. Oh, this seems interesting to me. This seems really interesting to me. TikTok. Oh, that's hilarious, right? Yeah, so you could tempt them with a TikTok video. In this case, the slide example on the left, lots of text. We're all guilty of this. Hey, today you're going to learn XYZ. Sit back and this is what you're going to learn. Whereas, what if you started it with a video? And maybe it says the same thing. Maybe it makes the same point. But now they're sitting up. one, you have a novelty effect because not a lot of people do this, right? Not a lot of people use video to catch people's attention, and there's tons out there that you could easily do. And the second part is that now you're using different senses, as well as you're creating a different mood potentially about, oh, I need to listen in on this. This seems really important. I think it's a great way to go, is to include using multimedia to get their attention right away. I've used comic book strips before, digital, Dilbert before, because they're like, what is this? But, Dilbert is some really cool things that they said related to learning science, and people would lean in on it because it would maybe make them laugh. Maybe it would be a miss, but it was just something different that would capture their attention. All right, so what I might like to do using this example then is try to show you, I'm going to show you how to embed a video. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new slide, but I want a lot of room so that the video can appear. So here's a slide just with a title here. I'm going to say video. And then all I'm going to do is go to insert, video, and then I have a couple options. So I've pre-populated this, but I know there's a video out there about the causes of lower back pain for as you get older. So I'm going to search for it, and there it is at the top. Actually, I'm going to use the second one because this is a bro that I think knows a little bit about lower back pain. So I'm going to select this video, highlight it, boom, look, no hands, there it is. So that's how you would do it in Google Slides if it's a YouTube video. If you're using PowerPoint, I'll show you how to do that really quick. So same thing again, instead of my objectives, I'm going to create a new slide. I want lots of room here. I'm going to come here, video. And then instead, I have saved the video locally on my computer. I'm going to also go to insert, same place. And I'm looking for the video option. I'm going to select a little drop down. I'm going to say movie from file. I've got a little short video on my desktop. There it is, about lower back pain. I'm going to insert. Look, mom, no hands. There's my video. All right, so now I can
see.
Yep.
One thing, I think this is also a great opportunity to point out that in PowerPoint now, I was going to tell you to leave that designer tab.
My bad. Okay.
One of the things that PowerPoint has done with the last couple of iterations is to create this designer mode. And this is actually a fantastic mode, which can often help you to preset a slide with your content, but using a lot of the traditional rules of attention getting, color scheming, shape utilizing, and stuff like that. And I find that, like, if maybe you're not feeling so creative, or you're not necessarily sure how you want to present it, rather than maybe just having the video titling and the slide or the video image, look at that designer tab at times. They come up with some really good ones.
I agree.
And you can put together a fairly quick, professional looking one just by doing that. So just something to point out to a lot of our users.
Fantastic. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, that design feature has really come a long way in the last few years. It really does make your presentations pop, especially a video like this, right? It could really provide some emphasis if you're trying to gain your students' attention. So thanks for sharing that. Fantastic. All right, so I've showed you 2 ways related to how to import videos, find them, download them, however you want to do it. We could talk more about that at another time. Or we can stay on afterwards and talk, chop it up about ways to find videos. I'm going to keep it going. And next, I'm going to talk about ways to direct attention. This has kind of already come up already on the discussion board. I think, Kaylee, you mentioned the point about one of the common problems. Before I circle back to that, what is a common complaint about our slides, about PowerPoint presentations? What is a common complaint?
I would think there's just too much information all at once, and we're talking over them, and then people are trying to read them, and it's a lot.
Yeah, I would agree with Michelle. I think one of the biggest problems, and we talk about this a lot, is cognitive load. And so if our slides are too busy, the cognitive load is too high, and it can sort of become difficult, like these slides kind of show, to really absorb what is the meaningful point about the slide.
I have nothing further to say, Your Honor. You all have said it so eloquently, Michelle, Saroj. I appreciate that. That's exactly my slides that I was going to talk about here. The one on the left, where do you put your eyes? Where does the student know where to focus? Where's the priorities? On the right-hand side, even if they don't memorize, even if they don't understand what is being communicated to them, there is some sort of order here being presented that then maybe will allow them to sink their teeth into this later on in life, right? When they leave the lecture. So, not the end all be all, but this idea of where do they put their eyes? Where do they direct it? How do you direct their attention is very crucial. Absolutely. So have you heard of the 7x7 rule? I'm not following it here, but Saroj, you want to take a shot at explaining when it comes to how much text should be on the screen, the 7x7 rule?
So I always learned it as the 6x6 rule, but generally speaking, it's 6 bullets per slide, no more than 6 words per bullet. And there's a lot there. I think the biggest thing for most of us is we tend to think that we have to put it all on the slide. But as I just mentioned in the comments, it's really important to remember, and I think someone else said this too. I think Brittany said this. Our slides are meant to be a partner to our actual presentation. They're not meant to be our presentation. So I often think of my slides as almost like a signpost. So the learner's listening to me, but periodically they'll glance to the slide to see the major points that are there. A lot of people are like, but I have to put on this bullet 22 words to describe this thing. And it's like, no, just use 3 or 4 words to give them a sense of what you're talking about. The description comes out of your mouth as you're talking.
Perfectly stated. Absolutely. So absolutely, it should be a signpost. Know your material. You all are experts. You all know your stuff inside and out. But yeah, if you can help them by not asking them to read, there's this theory called cognitive dissonance, where too many inputs of this that are too close together creates confusion, right? So back to our earlier comment about cognitive load theory. Absolutely. So think about ways to direct their attention. Less is more. In addition to 7x7 or 6x6, there is actually a mathematical formula of 1.296, I think, is of amount of blank space, white space. It doesn't have to be white, the color white, but it's called white space, empty space, versus how much information you present on there. I won't get into that. I don't expect anyone to be a mathematician, but also font size, what font? Here's another rule. I don't know if it's how accurate it is, but take what you think the average age of the audience is, divide it in half, and that's the smallest font size you should use. So right now, I'm gonna guess our average age is 22 years old. That means we're 11 font would be the lowest I would go. Nothing on that joke. Okay, I'm gonna keep it moving. All right, young crowd here, tough crowd. All right,
I was laughing. I was laughing for sure.
I was laughing too.
Thank you.
So loud. I just was on mute.
It's a terrible joke if people have to tell you they were laughing. I get it, Zoom, but I'm gonna keep it moving because it was a bad joke. I just made that up. So the last step here is tell a story. How do we tell a story, right? There's a lot of ways to do so. Here's an example I want to present of 2 options. So the science behind this that I would offer is facts alone are not sticky to students. We so often just pour as much facts. We might dive into concepts, which is a series of related facts together, but that's not enough, especially when they don't know about the topic. It's often decontextualized for them. They don't know how to make the connections on their own. You can help them by telling them a story. All right, so what's a story? Plainly, it's something that has a beginning, it has an end, a middle, a point, and a call to action. All right. So if you think about telling a story that way, there are a lot of ways you can go. All of you have some great clinical experiences that students would drink up, I would imagine, when you can make your point related to some of these drier facts and concepts, sharing those things. But a great way to tell an impactful story using your lectures is to use pictures. Right, not just a picture of a skeleton or a jawbone or the anatomy, but here's an example on slide where on the left-hand side it's about the presentation, trying to trigger our students to be able to use some diagnoses, some critical thinking skills. Right here, hey, what do you think that what is the presentation given? Tell us. Right on the right side, I want to take a different approach. And what if I tell you a story? There's this gymnast who is just about to make the national team. She's been training her whole life to make the Olympics, and she knows that this is a big step. She's got a big meet coming up in a couple months, but she's experiencing lower back pain. How would you go about treating this? It's her life's ambition. Her family has sacrificed 5 a.m. practices, 10-hour days in the gym, treatment, thousands of dollars, traveling, all these things, right? Which of those things is going to be more sticky to them? Could you find a way to tell the story that helps bring everything home for your students? All right, so which would you like better? The one on the left or the story I just told on the right?
I like, well, the one on the left, when I look at it, it's pretty obvious that her spine is slipping, the bottom part to the top part, because that's common. But you drew me in with your story about this person. So
Right.
I was more emotionally drawn to the interventions because I wanted to hear the rest of the story, and then also put it in perspective of you're treating a patient, not just a condition. So the left one is so clear as to what it is, but the right one, it actually piqued my interest more.
I think too, along those lines, there's some really subtle but important things that are done with the aesthetic of the slide. So the right one has a larger picture, which immediately draws you in more. The header for the slide says interventions for lower back pain. Lower back pain is a terminology that anybody can understand, retain, and remember. And the wording is good in both. It's essentially identical. But I think also the image on the left side, very small, sort of in the center. One thing I think that might be challenging in both situations is if you really wanted to key in, you might circle what is the issue going on or where is the issue. This is something we often do in the clinical world with radiographs, CT scans. A lot of times people will just put up images and say, well, obviously you can see this. Well, it's not always obvious to our students. And as we know, students are notoriously nervous about acknowledging they can't see something or can't recognize something. So using, animated circles, arrows, lines, I think can often be helpful.
Outstanding. I couldn't agree more. Michelle trained me. I noticed right away in the picture on the left that her back was slipping. I was like, yep, back slip. I'm kidding. I didn't pick up on that. I didn't pick up on that at all. And to your point, Saroj, I would probably put a circle around where you want to direct your students' eyes and where the issue might be, especially if they're starting out down this path to figure out what's what, right? They don't know what they don't know yet, right? Imaging, this is a big issue. You could see the calcium buildup. No, I can't. It all looks gray to me, right? So good point all the way around. So how do we tell our stories visually? There's a couple resources that I want to point out before I close, and I'm going to take you to Google. So let's say we want to look at lumbar. Let's see. I'm going to pick lumbar pathologies, right? So I'm going to choose this, and then I'm going to go to images. And now I'm not going to just grab an image here that I think best represents, because why? Copyright licenses, right? So does anybody know the trick to find images here that are open to share, that either have limited or no copyright protection?
Is it under the tools tab? Yep.
It is. Tools, usage rights. So Creative Commons is an area where you can host images and make them free to share, either with a limited acknowledgement or open, use the picture as much as you like without credit. So in this case, we just have a few. If we took a deeper dive, we'd probably find more. We could be more specific on the terms that we use to search. But the idea here is that these images are free for you to use with or without acknowledgement, without credit. And you can grab them. Maybe they work for you. Maybe they are they can mix it up for you. Otherwise, maybe you're limited in what image repositories you can pull from. But this is just a great way to find some stuff out there, especially the technical things, x-rays, human anatomy, those type of things. There's thousands of things out here. No sense of reinventing the wheel. But as my good colleague Brittany just shared on the chat, there are also some other things. Maybe it's not anatomy specific. Maybe there's some other things that you're trying to portray visually. Here's some great resources besides Google Creative Commons. Shutterstock, we have a license through ATSU. The only limitation there is you can only get maybe a couple pictures at a time, right, Julie? It's like 2 at a time. You can make a request to CNM, they'll pull them. Julie is great at this. She'll request 2 at a time for 10 weeks. And then have a whole folder full of pictures she needs for a lecture. I think I'm exaggerating there, Julie, but you get the gist. There's no limit, but usually a limit on how many you could pull requests per day. And then Pixabay is similar. Everything there is open source. You can grab it. Sometimes it tells you to give credit, who to give credit to, but oftentimes it's wide open. These are unrestricted, copyrighted, protected images.
Quincy?
Yep.
One of the other great places is the National Gallery of Art. They literally have approximately, like, I don't know, somewhere in the neighborhood of like 50, 60,000 images, and they're all royalty free. I put the link in there. It's nga.gov.
I see it. Fantastic.
And it's really fantastic. One of the other things I like about a lot of these sites is, and a suggestion to many people is, don't Google specifically for the thing you're looking for, but Google for an analogy. So if you want to talk about hypothesis, don't type in the word hypothesis, type in like, roadmap or something. You'll end up getting images that are evocative of what you're trying to get them to think about without necessarily being so literal in the image. And sometimes that is a very good way to get people sort of to retain where you want them to go.
100%, absolutely. And that's a fantastic summary to the idea of like telling a visual story that goes along with those 5 other parts, evoking emotion and making the metaphor, which makes, in the end, will help make your message, what you want them to learn, that more sticky. Fantastic. So just to wrap up here, just a couple of closing remarks. Joe, how's your audio? What's the first step to creating a less boring lecture? You want to put it in the chat if your audio is not working?
Create a theme.
Create a theme, absolutely. 2 ways we showed you, right? Slide Masters or Theme Builder. Fantastic. I had to take that back to Jerry Maguire. Absolutely, but maybe this makes it a little bit easier to tell me what the 4 steps are, right? Create a theme, what's next, and why?
Capture attention, because we only learn what we're paying attention to.
Right. Spoken like a true scientist. And then direct attention, right? If we direct their attention, we are increasing the chances of retention and transfer later on because they're focused on what we want them to focus on. And then, as we just concluded, tell them a memorable story. This will be very helpful when it comes to, retrieving this information later on in life, right? Okay, so before we wrap up here, what questions do you have for me about these 4 steps? Comments or questions? All right, what questions you have about anything that I shared here today with you?
I have a question. I haven't used Google Slides yet. Is that just you get into Google and you look for slides and then you create a slideshow?
Yeah, very similar to PowerPoint.
Okay.
It's the comparator there. But if you go to your Google Drive, oftentimes it will ask you new, and then you can choose it as an option to select Google Slides. I don't think it's as robust functionally. There's way more features with PowerPoint. I mean, it's the global industry standard, but I love it. In fact, it just does the job for me. It just does the job for me. And I love the collaboration feature.
Okay, thank you.
Quincy, one of the other things, and this may be a topic for a future TLC session that Google Slides does have, and PowerPoint does too, is integration of additional tools that you can download. So for example, we talked about unsplash.com as a royalty-free image thing. Google Slides, for example, has the ability to incorporate an Unsplash tool. And what that does is when you're building your slides, you can activate the tool, and then in the right column, it'll actually pull up a search engine for that website, allow you to quickly import an image. So that's PowerPoint does the same thing. It's a little bit more complicated, whereas Google Slides uses just sort of mini web apps that you give authorization to, and then they're kind of linked to your program. That might be nice, something nice too to talk about for a more advanced presentation design presentation.
Yeah, so it's like you borrowed my slides here. You set us up very well, because guess what we have coming next week? We're going to start that conversation a little bit. We're going to talk about polling options and ways to check for understanding with your students. Some of the things that we're going to talk about, Brittany will be leading the conversation next week, next Tuesday, same time, same place, is going to be on this idea. Some of those things will be useful and integrated into what we talked about here today. But maybe there's a deeper conversation to have. Maybe there's a whole series on that, because there's so many different things out there. We love that. We absolutely love that. So thank you for your time and attention. What I hope you remember is that we have 2 more presentations. However, we also have the complimentary podcast being released Thursday morning that's going to help explain some of the science that we've alluded to today. Thursday morning, you should get a hit on your calendar with the link included to our TLC website. We have a TLC learning channel where it will be released. So if you don't see it in your calendar, feel free to bookmark this, save this link that we just put in the chat. This is where it will be available to you. And it's related to the antidote to boring lectures, and where I take a few minutes to explore some of the science underneath why we do these things, why we make these choices with the technology. We are going to do that for the next 3 weeks. All right, so we're doing this topic this week. Next week, we're talking about polling tools. And then the following week is talking about social annotations. Phenomenal, another exciting conversation that we'll have. And each week it will be, just like now, live demonstration. And then Thursday, there'll be a release of a complimentary podcast. If you miss anything, feel free to check out that link where we'll post everything for you, okay? All right, we'll hang out here. We hope you stick around. If you have any follow-up questions, comments, say hi, check on us, we can check on you. Otherwise, we hope to see you Thursday listening to the podcast. If not, or we hope to see you again next Tuesday, same time, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you for your time and attention. Appreciate you.
I have a sort of question. No, I have a question. I have a
Oh,
question.
okay.
Well, and thank you. That was awesome. Very helpful. I've gotten into using the arrow lately. So I'll just plop a little arrow on there and point to what it is that I want them to look at. Because you can show them, this is what I want you to look at, but they might forget or they might not notice. So like you say, you just take off the load. But anyway, that wasn't my question. So some of the feedback I get from my students is that they would like, some students want this and some students don't want this. They would like that's a nice arrow. They would like the PowerPoints to be a study resource for them. So what I will do sometimes, I guess I just want your opinion on this. So I'll do sometimes that summary slide like you showed us with 7,000 words on it. And I'll just have it in there. I'll say, this is a summary of what we just talked about that you can use to study, but I don't use it to lecture in. Do you think that's helpful or?
I have mixed emotions about this idea, and I actually stayed away from it. I was a little bit beating up sweat on my forehead here because when there was a couple comments about text on the screen and like less is more, I know that there's a big push to do the opposite, because so often at ATSU and other places, that slide deck is a standalone resource for our students later on.
Yes.
I don't
That-
love it.
Yeah.
I don't love it, and for the reason is, then what else is happening in our instruction that they're relying on a PDF or a PowerPoint slide deck to that magnitude? I don't. If we're really thinking about the learning process and scaffolding the learning, right? Most times you're not lecturing to review. You might do a lecture for review, a test or midterm or something to that effect. But most of the time when they're in front of you, it's usually because they at least are just wrapping their minds around what you want to share with them. So the idea of like, we're going to give you every detail and then there'll be nothing left. You just go, then why do they need you, right? And then,
well, I ask that question sometimes. Yeah.
I get it. Because here's the fact. You're going to get a ton of pressure if you don't in some departments at ATSU, because everyone's like, well, Professor so-and-so does it. I'm going to mark you down on your course of house because you don't, right? Where you're really trying to help push them and do things different. My compromise is to use the slide notes, the notes, the speaker notes, the presentation notes underneath, where maybe that's where you're more detailed. And a lot of times PowerPoint, you can print off, you can make it whole thing available, your words, and then what's presented on the screen when they're in front of you. Then it's up to them to go back and they get to choose what they want to, how they want to take notes and how they want to use it as a resource. But to me, that would be the compromise, because I mean, the fact that the science is if you just throw everything on the screen, it's just too distracting. And I just think it's just, all right, you're going to complain, here you go.
Or you could even, I guess you could even have a class activity where that's what we're going to do a summary together.
Even better.
And then they have that resource later that maybe I help them create in class. Okay, well, thanks. That's helpful.
Yeah, but it's tough. It's tough. You have to make your own decisions. We battle in the TLC. Hey, can I get your slide deck? I always do it reluctantly because I don't think it's helping you.
Yeah, and I don't want to. Are there other people here who have questions? I've had students where, I mean, I've had phases in my career where I put a lot of effort into it, and it's clear that they don't use it to study. It's clear that they got their answers from Google, and then I have, oh well, nobody looks at these, so, and then they're like, how come I can't use this to study from? So every student's going to be a little bit different too. But anyway, okay, well, that's helpful.
Yeah, and and for those that may be listening in here to the presentation later, something we discuss in the CDI, if everything's tightly aligned, right, to those learning objectives, and you have a plan, right, and maybe you rely on those slides, maybe you have, like you said, maybe there's an activity where you do a really creative activity, an active learning activity, where they come up with their own notes related to that, right? And then when they do approach you about these things, you go, oh, I've got the plan. The plan is you should have been engaged in that activity, and now they can anticipate how to be successful in your class. What part of the blowback I've experienced is when you haven't planned for how they're going to get the information you shared in your slides. If you're not going to give them the slides, which is in their face, have something that you can refer back to, especially when they don't do as well as they'd like. Yeah, it was in that activity.
I had this last one, then I'll go. I had when I was getting my PhD, we had a seminar, and somebody said, hey, can we get these slides? And the professor was like, this is graduate school, meaning no. Which I thought was hilarious, because literally everybody else gave us the slides, but not her.
Right. And then think about that's such a controversial concept, to say no to give your slides away. That's crazy to me.
I'm pretty sure I'm not even sure I would try that, to be honest. I don't mind giving them, but it is.
I wrote all my professors in grad school did not give me, they did not release. In fact, it was like a policy in their syllabus, right?
It's nice to take notes on them, I'll be honest, but.
Okay. I wrote a letter to all my professors when I graduated asking if I could have their slide deck, because it's kind of inferred, right? You train, and then the chances are you get an academic job, you're going to maybe be teaching those same classes that you took. And so that's how I got almost most of the slides. from my professors. I wrote them a letter saying like, this is why and how I plan to use them. I'll always give you credit. I'm better for it, blah, blah, blah. And most went along with it.
That's
But
nice.
I think I'm better because they didn't give me the slides though. But who knows? I'd have more hair if they had given me their slides. Maybe.
How'd you take notes? Just on paper?
Yeah.
Okay.
I used OneNote was my go-to. I think that kind of became popular. So then digitally, I think I was a cool kid. I had an iPad 1, and I thought I was super cool. And so that was my computer in my classes, and I typed and do all that stuff. And I rode a skateboard. But yeah, that's how I did
Very
most
cool.
of my
I
note taking.
figured that.
Yeah.
I guessed that. I
Yeah.
figured that.
Awesome. Maud, thanks for joining us. We're just wrapping up. We only took about 20, 30 minutes. Well, it's probably 35 minutes. Took about 35 minutes.
Was this recorded? I'm sorry I joined in late.
It is. No worries. No worries. We know you had a lot going on in the library.
Okay.
Yeah,
thank
it's
you.
recorded. Yeah, of course.